Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. I think I need to start with the elephant in the room here. And we were just starting to talk about it before we started recording. Aqua, I read your post about Birdie Wing that went out earlier today.
I've officially handed in my resignation.
Sunday, and yes.
We're revoking your posting privileges.
We're going to have to, I think we're going to have to ask you to leave. Security will show you out. You can gather your things.
The people of GLORIO versus Aqua.
You're going to take me to the anime con upstate.
Yes. HR will get in touch with you on how to transfer your 401k. I don't know if that's a thing outside of America.
The assassination of Birdie Wing by the coward Aqua guys.
At least the golden handshake means I'll never have to work again.
True.
Yeah. Well, you didn't hear this from me, but the severance package for the GLORIO blog is not great. But
it's mostly us laughing at you, to be honest.
Anyway,
we'll have else they laughed at? Jesus Christ!
Oh God!
Did they?
That's a whole nother. That's like is it from like a comic book or something? I don't remember. It's a meme.
It's from a chick tract. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. I don't know what the origin is, but anyway. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that later, joking aside. But yeah, we're here to get our final takes in before the end of the season, since I think next time is going to be our preview show, so it's going to be our last chance to get our thoughts and speculation in on the summer shows here, or spring shows. We're going into summer.
For our usual format, by the next time you hear us talking about these anime, most of them will have finished. So.
Yeah. So,
depending on the scheduling, of course, considering.
Yeah, I haven't actually done the math, but I'm pretty sure like most of them will be either finished or like an episode
Oshi no
away.
Ko got
not Oshi
this
because that
week,
was a late show. Yeah, and also it got delayed 1 week, and also it will probably get a second core. But yeah.
Oh, we'll have some things to say about Oshi no Ko as well. But before
we will
dive into the details, let's introduce everybody. I'm Jel. I'm not joined by Iroh.
He's dead.
He's dead.
They finally got
him. Oh, pour one out for our beloved comrade Iroh. But yes, he is.
Well, no, technically he's in New Jersey, which is worse than death. So
that's not even. I know I got it wrong too, but you can't get it even more wrong.
Look, I just wanted to make a joke about New Jersey.
I know. No, he's in Philadelphia. That's also a city you could easily make fun of.
Yeah, honestly, Philadelphia has a lot of New Jersey energy, if we're being totally honest.
Any city in like the East Coast that is not New York has a lot of New Jersey energy.
Yeah, well, you start going north and you get into Boston energy, which is a different type of energy I kind of hate. But that's
is it G from Boston?
No, I went to college there.
Went to school there, yeah. She's from California, but yes.
California.
West Coast, baby.
Anyway, we will miss Iroh. I will do my best without Iroh's steady hand to keep this from devolving into a fist fight, as we are now evenly matched between GLORIO Team GLORIO USA here and the Team GLORIO. With
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm the only European here.
It's true.
Oh well, yes, that is true. I have to correct that now, but yes, we are joined by Aqua.
I'm invincible. Street Fighter reference.
No, it's indestructible. You idiot!
Whatever.
That was like 10 years ago.
You didn't even get it right.
I mean, actually, it was 15, but
I don't know. Kamehameha, Dragon Blood.
Got it. Yep.
Yes,
got it in one.
First, the Birdie Wing takes. Now this. Get this man out of here.
Yeah. So yes, we are joined by Aqua and Zig this time.
You see, you say that people laughed at Jesus, but Jesus was a fucking amateur. People laugh at me all the time, baby.
The heavyweight pro.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Joker
And
2019.
We do still have G with us, so we can holding it down for the regulars.
Well, I'd love to, but, you know, I'm here busy in my pursuit of strength. You know, I always thought I was strong, you know, playing these baby games like Persona 4 Arena and Guilty Gear. I thought I had achieved strength. But now I'm playing Street Fighter 6, and I realize just how long this journey is going to be to discover strength.
It's not entirely your fault, G. People from Boston are always clumsy and ill-coordinated. So,
Wow.
We cannot do I'm from Boston bit. Like, I was the worst Bostonian in the 5 years I lived there. I, like, barely engaged at all with that city.
Yeah.
Hey, man, if you want strength, have you considered beating people up with a banana?
That's a reference like 3 people will get, but I appreciate it.
All right.
I'm sorry, I can't pick that one up.
Well, we'll have to rein this in here and move on because we've got a lot of anime to talk about. But yes, Street Fighter 6 is out, and for what I'm told, it is very good.
Yeah, like I'm getting the shit beat out of me. I'm a dead horse here, man. I am getting I am apparently. You know, I was joking, but, like, I thought that, like, my experience in other fighting games, mostly anime fighters, would, like, give me some foundation to stand on, but...
I'll give yourself some credit, man. We went 25-2 last night. That's not awful.
Well, yeah, I think...
At least I got those 2. You know what? I'll say that. You know?
As, yeah. I don't know how to feel about it because I think both me and Zig, we both started with Street Fighter, right? And
yes, we are.
I have experience with both, but since I started from Street Fighter, it was like the anime fighters were the different thing I had to get used to versus the other way around. So I can't say I know that particular feeling, but I can understand. Like, I've played enough to know the difference, like, why it would be a big adjustment, but yeah.
It is a legitimate difference, you know, like, I definitely can say from my personal experience that, like, I'm not going to say I'm, like, a complete newbie, you know, yes, I can string together a Hadoken motion, but, like, it's, like, the individual particulars of those button presses in Street Fighter that are just so different from what I'm used to, but I will also say credit to the game, you know, yeah, I went, like, 225 with Zig yesterday, but, like, I had a lot of fun, you know? Like, it was fun to start to figure out, like, what my options are, like, what my cool moves, you know, what moves do I enjoy landing, and, you know, like, it is the classic fighting game thing of, like, I cannot wait till the next time we play because I've been labbing, man. I've got some new shit I want to try out. And here's the thing: it probably won't work. Like, I'll do it round 1 of the first game we play. You'll shut it down instantly, but I'll go like. You know?
I mean, that is how it always goes. I will say that, like, I think the game just feels good. You know, it has a nice chunky, like, direct feel. Like, the impacts are really good, and yeah, I think. You know, a lot of people are going to get into fighting games with this game, and I think it's a good one to do that with. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get our anime talk out of the way so you guys can hit the lab again, I guess. We'll go through these shows one more time here, and we'll start with my romantic comedy power hour here with My Love Story with Yamada-kun at level 999. Not too much to say this particular block, as they do the main girl Akane gets the dreaded anime cold, and Yamada has to take care of her. It goes exactly how you would expect. This is, of course, putting a pause on, if you recall last time I mentioned Yamada did his weird confession thing, and Akane was in the process of sorting out her feelings until she caught the dreaded anime cold. And of course, Yamada taking care of her only cements her feelings for him. But I have found it a little weird that so Akane was dating somebody before. So, like, the fact that she's kind of going through some of the, like, you know, what is love? Do I have a crush on him? Sort of feelings I thought has been a bit weird.
I mean, over the years, I have learned that dating someone and being in love with them are apparently not the same thing.
Well,
no, they're very different things, I think.
yeah, I guess, but like, I guess I'm talking about like the classic anime. Like, I don't understand what it means to have a crush on somebody or whatever.
What is
and
this
like,
feeling? Yeah.
yeah, but they
What
do
is
kind
this
of.
Doki Doki in my chest?
I did kind of remember, and they kind of remind you like the show started with her getting dumped, and like she's like, do I still have feelings for this other guy or whatever? And like it's probably only been like a month or two that's gone by at this point too, right? So like, okay, that makes sense. A lot of people are not ready to just start dating again right after they get dumped, but so I mean, I'll let that one slide. But the only other thing is there's a bit of a subplot with Yamada and one of the girls in his class, who of course also is in love with him, and she's like serious nerdy gamer girl who is has a crush on him, and there's this whole subplot about Yamada's emotional pain because, oh god, he's so hot and all these girls keep asking him out and he has to keep turning them down, and it's such a psychological drain on him. But
Shima-kun. I love
Damn, that's rough,
Loafer.
buddy.
Real rough, buddy. I mean, look, it does suck to have to turn people down. Like, it's not fun. It's a bad feeling. I get it. And I guess
if you want a show that can talk about that subject well, look no further than the next show we'll be talking about.
Which which that probably handles it a little bit better. This in Yamada-kun, it's more of like, more of a dramatic sort of,
right, author being like, what could be a problem that a hot dude has?
I mean, I do think that this is not really an issue that would affect the vast majority of anime protagonists, because they tend to be sociopaths who have no regard for the feelings of other people.
Yes.
So perhaps this is a unique case.
So he does at least feel bad about it, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, yes. So Aqua, as you alluded to, this is somewhat addressed in Skip and Loafer.
Loafer, yeah.
As I think we're finally getting more into Shima's backstory and what he's thinking.
You'd think, right?
Well,
the guy is like an onion, He just has layers and layers, and you can keep peeling them back. And I think this is kind of the appeal that they still haven't really gotten through to him, even in the manga.
It is the first time in the latest episode. I think it's the first time we've ever actually heard his inner voice.
Yeah,
his thoughts at some point.
Because it's the first time that they actually follow things from his perspective.
Yeah, so because we mentioned that earlier, like we kind of get that with every character except him, and this latest episode was like the first time I think we ever had a scene where we have his actual perspective.
Right, and wasn't there some speculation that was because he was hiding a dark secret or something like that?
Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a second. I do want to bring up the first episode of these two episodes, which was a bit more fun. Yeah, where they go on their zoo date, right?
Right, the zoo date and then the sleepover.
And Mizumi's aunt decides to tail them because she doesn't know about the Shima guy.
Right.
And somewhere in there they casually drop...
He might be a popular playboy who's stringing her niece along.
And somewhere in there they casually drop that she's a trans woman, I guess.
Was that not obvious?
Which was yeah, I mean they were giving you some pretty heavy clues, but like this one they were like, she's just out and says it, right? Like it's yeah, which is pretty cool. And you love to see the positive representation here.
Overall, the show does a very good job of like representing that character, even though she's not like a main character. It like occasionally pops up, especially when Mitsumi is dealing with her family back home, but like in general it does not define the character. It is merely a facet of who she is. Like,
right, it's a good balance of like acknowledging it and also having it be, like you said, one aspect. The big thing is like she's very, supportive and a very good, support system for Mizumi while she's in the city, right? And
right.
Even I guess a support system for what's the other girl's name?
Ebashira, Mika.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who also is stalking our main
Yes.
couple at the zoo, and that's how they meet. And
The thing is, like, every time this show focuses on a particular character, I'm like, man, this is the best character in Skip and Loafer.
right.
It's just because they're all so well-rounded. You have Mitsumi, who is like the like Mitsumi is like the shoujo protagonist that you actually are, as opposed to the one you want to be. Like,
right. Yeah.
Just a horrible overachiever, cringe loser who is then accepted for who she is. But then all the other characters also play certain roles, but they are so incredibly well fleshed out. They're more than simply what they appear initially. Like, it's like, oh, she appears to be the mean girl who has a shallow crush on the love interest. And the show spends a lot of time exploring, like, Ebashira's identity and her struggles with the fact that she kind of knows that she is shallow and that it's not everyone else who is a vapid loser. She kind of is.
Right.
And
yeah,
sort of having her figure out how to deal with that and how to, like, accept people accepting her for who she is.
Yeah. And having met up with Auntie Now here, she gives her some good advice, and they kind of become friends, which is funny in the context of the show.
Yeah,
but
and they do have something in common, right? They are both people who were unsatisfied with who they were in their previous life and sort of try to become an ideal version of themselves, right?
Right.
Because Mika was like a chubby loser in middle school, and she made a deliberate effort to change her image as
she wanted to be the
cool
popular girl, right?
And then immediately got, like, knocked off of her pedestal by Yuzuki, who is just, like, naturally charismatic and popular.
Right.
But then Yuzuki is also more than that, and actually struggles with being seen as, like, the queen bee when she just wants to be a regular person who hangs out with the people she likes to hang out with, even though those people may not necessarily be cool. Like, she's hanging out with the two least cool people in that school. So
right, yeah, because you got Mizumi
Makoto
and then
and Mitsumi,
the glasses girl.
Yeah,
and before we get into Shima's stuff, I did also like at the beginning of the second episode when Mizumi goes home.
Right.
As a little, change of pace kind of reminder. I think that helps, flesh her character out a bit more. Because, she is so, like, driven and high energy most of the time, but now you get to see, they capture a little bit of the feeling of going back home after you've moved out for a while,
right,
sleeping in, mom giving you
fall
whatever you want
back
for
into
breakfast.
your own habits.
But
so
that was nice, but
rose that question of, like, I wonder if rural Japan is actually still like that, or is this is like an idealized form of it?
I mean, I always tend to think that the stuff we see in anime is a super romanticized version.
I also feel like it didn't even look that rural when she went back.
Yeah,
but
because it's definitely not that, like, old timey. All the old men wear that, like, stomach warmer thing, and all the kids have crew cuts and they play around. Yeah. It's not, your Boku no Natsuyasumi, but it's like they have phones and technology and stuff like that, but there still are certain things of, like, grandma is making the special local dish that requires her to, like, cook in the backyard for an entire afternoon, like that kind of stuff.
Unfortunately we don't have Artemis on to tell us and confirm what if that's what rural Japan is like these days, but
yes, we do in fact have a rural Japan expert, so to speak, that is not on this podcast at the moment. So
we'll have to get her opinion on that. But so that was nice. But I do think the focus was kind of shifted a little more over to Shima, I think, in the second
Right.
episode. I mean, they started to introduce some of his backstory.
X question mark?
I wouldn't
Yeah.
describe her as that. So
She is definitely the girl who feels entitled to
his
him.
love
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But so first of all, I don't really like his backstory. I feel like it's so bizarre that I don't feel like it fits with the tone of the show. But
so Shima's backstory is that he was a child actor who and one day they got
invited to like a party or something.
He and this girl Ririka, who was also like a child actress model kind of thing, whatever. They got invited to like a party. Indeed, they were
it's like a cast party or something.
Coerced into drinking alcohol. The press found out, and she was cancelled over it, and he was not. Basically, like.
Yeah, so
this sounds chillingly realistic. So
they said they were like sixth grade or something. So what were they like? 11 years old
12,
or something like that.
11 or 12, like.
And and so they got brought along into this cast party or something and drank alcohol, and yes, she got canceled and he did not, and she's very bitter about it.
Mm-hmm.
And especially because he wants like nothing to do with acting or anything anymore.
Right, I was going to say, didn't he willingly opt out of all
that? And so she's still holding this against him, and he still feels like he owes her whatever she wants because he ruined her life.
He needs to like play her boyfriend whenever she rolls back into town because he feels like he owes her. Yeah,
and I don't know. I don't feel like it's so like far-fetched and over the top that I feel like for a show that's so chill and like down to earth.
I will say this actually happens. Like there are stories of like idols that young getting into quote unquote scandals
right
because of drinking and smoking and things like that.
Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but like I guess in contrast to the rest of the show where it's like regular people dealing with regular people.
I mean, honestly, I think I was scared you were going to go way darker there for a moment. So,
but I think the idea is that they wanted to create something that feels as far away from the normalcy of the show, to show that this everyday fun casual life is what Shima wants but has never known. Because he grew up in a situation that is completely different, completely foreign to like a normal person. Because there's a bunch of implications that he has a rather strenuous relationship with his mother, who like is your classic stage mom who like forced him into being an actor and being a celebrity against his will, right?
Yeah, like, and I think that would probably play stronger for me, like, because that that seems more, I guess, relatable. I guess, it's like if we're trying to establish why Shima is so kind of sad and distant, like those kinds of things feel more impactful to me than
I think also the whole drinking thing is more her backstory than it is his backstory. I don't think it has anything much to do with why he quit acting.
Right, but I mean, it is why he's so like attached to her still, right? Like,
right, but I guess it kind of shows that like everything just sort of slides off of him, right? Like that he can just pretend that never happened.
Well, I mean,
the way he doesn't seem to really care about anything.
He's trying to pretend it doesn't affect him.
Right.
Yeah, it clearly is, right?
What they're going for, right?
And I do think that the end result is good because does kind of show. They're not saying that Shima is handling this correctly, right? They're trying to tell you no, he is not like processing this correctly. He this is an actual problem that he has to work out, and
mhm.
I think that works well as far as like a counterpoint to him being sort of Mr. Perfect himbo most of the show. But
Well, that's the
yeah,
thing,
so,
right? The show is not afraid to call its characters out. Like, not even
exactly,
Mitsumi.
yeah.
Like, as we
Everybody
saw in the
has
last
like,
block of episodes.
and that's what we were saying before. Like everybody has their good points and bad points, right? Like it's
Mhm.
nobody is a perfect character, but you kind of like them all because they're well-rounded people.
Humans are just human.
Humans are humans doing their best, right? So, so yeah, I mean, we kind of don't. They kind of bring that up, but don't really do much with it yet, I guess.
I mean, I think this is built up for when Ririka, the girl, gets to meet his friends, right?
Right.
Which will probably be the culmination of the show, because
And
as far as I know, that happens during the cultural festival, and they are working on that. So
right, and yes,
there's also the interesting thing of like their class putting on a play, which will almost certainly lead to Shima having to reckon with his
right
demons as an actor.
It's an appropriate setup for the final. What's probably going to be like the final arc here, right? Where yes, Shima's going to have to confront his greatest feelings. Yeah,
Go back on stage, Shima-kun, or Mitsumi will have to do it.
yeah, get on stage, right? So, but yeah, I mean, overall though, I that's not really a major complaint or anything. I just feel like that aspect seemed a little incongruous with everything, but I think the end result is still good. There are probably other ways you could have gotten to that result, but the end result is good. And yeah, I guess we'll have to see now that they've set up we've got our cultural festival arc, and is Shima gonna have to act in the play? And I could see that going either way, depending on how things go. I mean, I kind of don't want it to be like, oh, he overcomes his fears and acts in the play, and now he's all better, right? But who knows? I don't know if we ever mentioned Aqua. Have you been reading the manga? Like,
yes.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah.
So you already know what happens?
I am up to date with the manga, but then again, as previously established, I have a memory of a sieve. So I don't know exactly what happens during the school festival. I just know that Shima's character arc is a
ongoing process.
Process. Yes. Like, he will not simply, get over it and become cheerful himbo for the rest of the show. Like,
right. Okay. Well.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
I think at this stage I'd probably prefer it that way. So that's good.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want your ensemble romantic high school comedy to have characters that complete their character arcs and then just keep on going for half of the show. Cuff, cuff, Horimiya, cuff, cuff.
I saw they're getting another season for Horimiya, I think.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, and they're going to adapt everything like they couldn't adapt in the first show.
Yeah. The pitch is, how about a show that's made up of all the bits that were not good enough to get into the first season?
Like the second half of the first season.
Yikes. All right, well, we're not here to talk about Horimiya. That'll be for another day, but
I'm always up to talk about Horimiya.
I think it's I think that's a fair comparison, right? Yeah, so.
Yeah.
All right, well, that show's still really good though. So, enjoying it. Let's
unchain G.
Gia, I'm sure you've been patiently waiting in the background here to talk about Vinland Saga. Without Iroh, unfortunately, you're the only one left here watching it. Although I keep hearing, like, even outside of you guys, everybody's saying this is so good. Like, I almost wish next season is like terrible so I can have time to watch it. But
yes, let us pray for a barren summer so that everybody can catch up on Vinland Saga in time for the end of the year.
If ANN says it's good, it must be good.
You really must be careful what you wish for there.
Look, me and Aaron need to get back into watching Dunbine, all right? Like, we've kind of fallen off of it because this season has been so solid. We haven't had time to do our Tomino Power Hour. But yeah,
you haven't had time to talk about shows from 20 years ago on this podcast about.
Oh, 20! How quaint! I think you mean more like
40. 40.
But yeah, no. So to keep it on track here, look, I don't want Vinland Saga to end up in that sort of weird, like, everything everywhere all at once, or Undertale-esque, like, hyperbolic, like, praise situation. But
You mean like Legend of the Galactic Heroes?
well, no, because Legend of the Galactic Heroes is literally as good as we all claim it is. There's no amount of look. You guys got to stop distracting me. I see what you're trying to do here. You can watch Legend of the GLORIO Heroes at.
Yes.
All right. So
yes,
Vinland Saga. I know I say it every week, but I really do appreciate and love just how much it seems like the people at MAPPA who are working on this specific adaptation seem to really truly key into like what makes that show tick truly. And of course, most of that staff, I should mention, are former Studio Wit. My understanding, I think we've said this a couple times, is that even though MAPPA has picked up season 2 of Vinland Saga, a lot of the people who worked on the first season, which was handled by Studio Wit, were like so committed to the series that they were willing to switch studios to keep working on it. But yeah, so these 2 episodes, which are named Pain and Courage, which should give some indication of what goes on this week, are sort of the continuing culmination of all the pieces that have been falling into play this whole season, right? Like Thorfinn's sort of actualization as a human being and his, swearing to pacifism, Kettle's farm sort of falling apart due to King Canute's own, increasingly violent methodology to achieving his idea of the perfect nation. And the ways in which the marginalized are always the first to suffer the most due to the whims and actions of powerful men. Pain is about the clash between Kettle's farm and King Canute's forces, and it goes about roughly as you'd expect between an army of like 300 peasants with like buckets on their head and like a trade force of 100 dudes in shield formation and chainmail. And it's a slaughter, like but it happened in the prior week as well, but this week is sort of like the now it is time for the named characters to come to terms with the consequences of this violence.
Just out of interest, are the people on the side of the farm, are they fighting because they want to, or are they fighting because they have been told to?
And that's the thing, it's a combination of both.
Right.
Like the tenant farmers, get wound up by classic, so this is the thing, right? This is the aspect of the culture that this show is playing with, is it is a combination of material desire, right? The idea that like for a lot of these tenant farmers, if they can somehow pull this off, right, they will be rewarded handsomely, right, by Kettle. But also there's a lot of the like espousing of like, remember your Norse manhood, right? Remember, your role in this world, right? Like, you're a man, you're meant to fight, you're meant to repel the invaders, right? Even though in this case the invaders are like so overwhelmingly like more powerful that there really is only one possible conclusion. And yet, they get wound up, in that first battle, these tenant farmers, they try to give it their best effort, right? And it is only after like that first clash where they truly realize like how out of depth they are. And then sort of the other half of the episode is sort of the conclusion of Arnhide's story. As a reminder, Arnhide is the female slave that Einar and Thorfinn befriend on Kettle's farm.
Right.
In a prior episode, we find out, she is the wife of the escaped slave in the prior arc, and she is pregnant with Kettle's child. And, just as a brief reminder that when Kettle finds out about the escaped, the attempted escape, brutally beats Arnhide within an inch of her life. And This is the episode where we find out that that inch is a lot closer than we thought it was. She briefly regains consciousness, to, thank Thorfinn and Einar for everything they've done. And, as they try to, beg her to try to hold on to living, she kind of hits them with the most armor-piercing question of all, which is, in a world this cruel, in a world where those of us who are at the bottom of society are trampled on with such inhumanity.
But enough about the present day.
Yes. But truly, what is there to live for? If life is just an unending series of cruel acts and indignities, why should I bother holding on to my life? There is nothing for me here, and there will never be anything for those of us who exist at the bottom rung of society. And I haven't really gotten into it, but I really want to give a big shout out to Arnhide's voice acting. Not just this episode, but every time she has appeared in this show. This is going to sound bad and out of context, but
just to be clear, you're watching this in the original Japanese audio.
Of course,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
You're telling me you're not even watching this in the original Norse?
Unfortunately not. They haven't. I don't think there's a Norse dub of this show yet. But Arnhide is a character that truly gets dealt a great degree of cruelty and indignity, being a female slave in medieval Europe. And she does an amazing job voicing just her anguish and her suffering. I know this sounds bad, but it's
because that can be very easy to overact, right?
Yes, and she does it in this very human way. There's a scene a few episodes back where she kind of breaks down crying about just the whole absurdity of this situation of being a female slave, but then having her former husband, who is also now a slave, coming to rescue her, and just this horrific paradox she's been caught in. And she is choking back sobs and tears in this very realistic, very believable way. She's kind of incomprehensible. I don't actually know, not being familiar with Japanese, I don't even know if she's particularly easy to understand in the original Japanese. Her acting is it's so fucking good. I she is not the character I thought would be such a standout in the adaptation of this show, but she really is, and she becomes the catalyst for Thorfinn. Thorfinn remembers a story from when he was a child in this episode, right? He remembers when his sort of family friend Leif Erikson told him about a place called Vinland, far to the west, and how this land was an untouched paradise. Untouched by war.
I'm assuming this guy is the Leif Erikson.
Yes, this is the Leif Erikson, yes, who has told a child Thorfinn about this land. And this is all a callback to literally episode 1 of season 1. This is sort of a completion. This is a completion of the circle that has been in the making over 40 episodes. Where Thorfinn finally remembers this story for the first time in literally over a decade, and tells the dying Arnhide that there is a land that is untouched by this cruelty and indignity, and it is a place called Vinland, and that one day they will all go there, and they will all escape the vicious cycle of violence that has engulfed medieval Europe. And it is beautiful, but there's also an undeniable bittersweetness about it, because those of us who are familiar with the history kind of know what happens to the Viking excursions into North America. We know the eventual
North America in general.
yes.
Yeah.
And yet for these people who have literally nothing else to live for, is even the dream something worth living for? And that is sort of the question that episode grapples with in the end. And, regardless of whether it succeeds or not, Thorfinn now galvanizes the various thoughts I've been coalescing in him into direct action. And that then leads into episode 21, titled Courage. And This episode is also really good, but for some other reasons. It is sort of the aftermath of the battle. Olmar, the sort of second fail son of Kettle, who had inadvertently kicked off this war in the first place because of his like delusions of grandeur about Viking manhood, is forced to literally face to face with the wounded at the camp after the battle, right? Like, in some regards, the people who were killed in this fight may have been the lucky ones. Olmar is forced to directly witness the grievous injuries, the mutilations, men with their hands and legs hacked off, arrows in their eyes, guts spilling out. And again, Vinland Saga very deliberately employs its gruesome violence in the right places, right? Like, This is not meant to be like for shock value or excess. It's meant to make a man who, up until this point, has explicitly been portrayed as delusional about what it means to be a warrior, is now forced to confront what that actually means. And it breaks him in the best way possible, because as the actual like stated heir to Kettle's farm, he is the only person in Kettle's family who has the eponymous courage to understand their situation and agree to surrender to Canute so as to prevent any more undue suffering towards, their tenant farmers. And this is where Vinland Saga then plays with the ideas of like, what is courage, right? Especially in medieval Europe, especially in Viking culture. What does it mean to have strength? What does it mean to be brave? And is self-awareness, is self-actualization not its own form of courage? And this directly like then and in the ways that Vinland Saga like always expertly like ties these storylines together, then ties directly to Thorfinn's actions in this episode, where he has really constantly struggled with what can a pacifist slave do to stop a war. And there is a somewhat contrived reason why King Canute is here at this battle, and that is to catalyze a meeting between him and Thorfinn. And so Thorfinn resolves to meet with Canute by any means necessary. And he is stopped by the soldiers at Canute's camp, who of course do not believe that this scrawny, disheveled slave was at any point in his life a former like colleague of their king.
Yeah, I was going to say, just to refresh my memory, they had a previous, like they knew each other previously, right? Like
yes, they were they were co-conspirators, I guess, in the death of Canute's father. And so they kind of give this, and this is where it's like, okay, it goes back to being a little bit anime, right? Where these Vikings are like, all right, tell you what, you weirdo little slave, if you let our biggest, burliest Viking warrior punch you directly in the face 100 times in a row, and you're still alive and conscious by the end, we'll let you speak to the king. And, this is sort of to set up that, like, Thorfinn, a guy who has always lived his life as someone who would take no shit, fought Thorkel the Tall to a standstill in season 1, the Viking Terminator himself, is now being told, hey, you got to take a beating like an animal for like the next 30 minutes if you want even a chance to talk to our king. And this sort of ends up being like, this will be the real test of his convictions and his commitment to pacifism.
Right.
And that's kind of
where
we
probably just murder the guy who's punching him in the face, right?
Oh, he could totally murder this dude.
Yes. So like,
yeah, like that. And that is the thing, right? That is like the, this is the show that constantly asks, like, what is the value of your pride? What is the value of your standing in a society versus like the real material concerns for like people's lives? And, that is sort of the fun, like Olmar, the Fail son, comes to that realization in this episode that there is more to this world than pride. And Thorfinn has maybe already known this for like 6 episodes at this point, but now those convictions will truly be put to the test in the next episode. And Yeah, man.
So they don't actually do the punching yet. That's where we end.
He took like 3 at the end of like this episode.
Okay,
he's got
but
97 more to go. So
Right.
you know.
Right. Okay. Well, again, that all sounds very good. I will try to find time to watch that at some point, because I keep hearing more and more about it. I'm like, that sounds like something I'm gonna like if I actually get around to it. So
yeah, it's really well done. I don't know if I want to go as far. Like, I mean, Heavenly Delusion is airing this season, so in some regards, Vinland Saga perhaps cannot win best adaptation of the season, but oh boy, it is right there. It is certainly in the same weight class, to be sure.
Multiple good shows is a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yes, definitely for sure. Yeah. I guess if I would give anything to Vinland Saga, then in the comparison between the two, I think Vinland Saga's adaptation is like, it is pitch perfect in the way of it is not really experimenting or diverging from the source material in any way. It is just taking the strengths of that source material and honing them to kind of their sharpest edge possible in the anime version, which
interesting week to make that comparison with the
definitely
episodes we have this week.
Yes, definitely. And so Vinland Saga is proof you can in fact slavishly adhere to the source material and still pull it off like really excellently.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like you said in the beginning, like so long as you understand like what are like the important things, right, to emphasize, and that's probably the most important part of any adaptation. And whether you make it look exactly like the manga or you put your own flavor on it, so long as you're like reinforcing the right themes and ideas and everything, usually you can make it work. But,
definitely.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll have more on Heavenly Delusion in a bit, but first we're gonna talk about Oshi no Ko,
the other high-profile adaptation.
with yet another one, which we only had one episode this time because they got hit with the recap episode.
I feel like every time I hear about this show, it is becoming more and more divisive.
Well,
that's valid.
All right. So, I'm curious because I don't think we've talked about this separately this episode yet. So I'm curious to hear what you guys are going to think. But basically, we left off on the cliffhanger with Aqua saving Akane from jumping off the bridge and killing herself, right? And we kind of deal with the immediate aftermath of that, and I'll say my feelings first, and then I'll let you guys have at it. But
before we talk about episode 7, there is something important about episode 6 that we do need to address, which is on the last episode of the podcast. Iro alluded to the story of Akane being very similar to what actually happened in real life to Hana Kimura, a professional wrestler who also participated in a similar show, and her story did not end as well as it does in Oshi no Ko. And lots of people pointed this out after the episode aired, as did many people when the manga chapter in which this happens went up or was published or whatever. And it turns out that Hana Kimura's mother, who was also a relatively famous pro wrestler, heard of it, and she was not satisfied. She was not happy with her daughter's story being used as free reference material, as she called it. Which is obviously like a shitty thing for the anime company to not consult her, and ask for her permission. Just then again, that should have happened when the manga was published.
Yeah,
and not when
I was going to say, just to clarify, was that during when it came out in the manga or
no?
Now?
When she responded after the anime. So I can imagine
like recently.
Yeah. So I can imagine the anime people being in kind of like an awkward position where they were perhaps not really aware of what they were doing as they adapted it.
Yeah,
it's definitely one of those tough situations.
Yeah,
where, like
it's difficult, but also like I think it's complicated because like
Right.
it's hard to say this without sounding callous, but I don't necessarily think you should have to ask for permission to use rips from the headline stories.
The thing is, you cannot, like, that is just because, first of all, it is all speculation that this story was based on the Hanakimura story. It probably was.
I mean, it's.
But then
let's
again,
be real here, like it's not speculation much, you know.
Right. But
It's
the
not
thing
a
is,
smoking
like,
gun. You are seeing it shot at you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
But the thing is, like, if we cannot base ourselves on things that we experience in real life that make an impression on us when writing stories,
Right, that's what I'm saying as well.
right? Like, what is because, like, people are coming out and saying, "Oh, this is just the writers are being sensationalist, or they're using this poor girl story to get attention and views." Whereas on the other hand, this could just as well be, we know Oshinoko is a very personal sort of story, or comes from a personal sort of vendetta. This might as well just have been, writer sees something, hears something, has an emotional reaction to that, and tries to reckon with his feelings by writing a story based on the news that he heard.
Right. I
And
mean,
that's a way more positive spin than, they used this for sensationalism.
I mean,
Right?
the answer is also that both of these things can be true at the same time.
Right.
I think Zig got there before I did. Is that, like, writers are always influenced by what's around them, right? I mean, one need only look at fiction post 9/11 for a great example of this, right? Like, people are always influenced by the events that happen in their life, and I think and I don't think there is a, like, necessarily clear line of, like, this is okay and this is, offensive, right? I think it is that very, very difficult thing of, I think every case of this probably has to be approached individually, right? Because there is the world where, like, there is the world where, like, that real life tragedy is used in a very, like, grotesque or sensational way, right? Like, there's a version of this where it is used in such a clumsy manner that you can only take offense at it.
Which manga is absolutely no stranger to. Like,
yes.
There have been, like, horrible murder cases that have been sensationalized into, like, shitty horror manga and stuff like that.
For the record, neither is pro wrestling.
I mean,
yeah. So,
but I think in Oshinoko's case, where I don't know if necessarily that knowledge affected my perception of this episode any. I think this is that tough thing of, like, it's hard for me to know for sure, like, is this episode sort of the, like, almost like fantasy do-over, if that makes sense, right? Like, this episode is like, if only X,
if
Y,
only
and
I
Z
could
had
have
been
saved Hanakimura,
right? And so there's this aspect of, like, are your intentions there good, or is there a little bit of that, like, kind of weird?
I mean, this is
writer
the whole
savior complex.
This is the whole controversy that happened with that Y2K game a couple of years ago, right? Which also was based on a real life murder case, and also felt like some kind of, like, the writer being like, "Oh, I could have saved this innocent poor girl."
Right.
Like,
and I think, again, I mean, I think I know why Oshinoko continues to be divisive, because even for me personally, I'm kind of still working through my feelings on this episode. Like, I feel like it is... The thing I will say is, I think the tightrope Oshinoko is walking on is getting thinner and thinner for me every episode, but up till now, it is still managing to stay upright, if that makes sense. Like...
Yeah.
Like,
So,
there's a lot of things...
Yeah.
Every episode where I go, like, I'm like, I look real fucking hard at Aquamarine, and I'm like, you're really getting on my nerves, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how much more of you I can put up with.
Right.
But
so this is gonna segue into a discussion of episode 7, right? So before we do this, I do have to say that Kyoko Kimura, the mother's response to the episode, was predictably met by a lot of online harassment. And I have to say, Jesus fucking Christ, media literacy. Like,
right, like way to miss the point of the episode.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So,
God.
yeah.
I mean, I think that's a thing. I mean, I think even episode 7 gets that to a certain extent, right? Like, because because the episode itself deals with the aftermath of Akane's attempted suicide, and I almost respect that the episode is like, yeah, some people were sympathetic, but also a lot of people, said online, I wish he had done it. And it's like, that is the most believable thing about online discourse about a celebrity.
That's the thing, right? They try to turn the discourse around, but they straight up admit that, not everyone is on board, and some people are just shit. Like,
yeah.
And this is where then it makes kind of like the part of the episode where, the healing arc, quote unquote, begins that I don't want to say rings hollow, but like almost like maybe I'm too cynical. I don't know if a fluffy like highlight reel posted to Instagram or Twitter would actually reverse people's opinions to that degree.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like,
I mean, the thing is, most of the people who are doing this shit like aren't available to have their opinion changed, right? Like, nothing will change the opinion of an online troll because the opinion is not the point; it's the action that's the point, right?
Yeah. So, I just to share my own roller coaster feelings on this episode, the quote unquote healing arc. I was just like, oh come on, we're really doing this? Like, are we going to do the like? We all just be Akane's friend, and she's healed from her.
To see this Aquamarine super genius who he's solved online bullying.
Yes, he is.
That's
solved.
what I mean when my side eye is like starting to hit 180 degrees on.
He has solved online bullying and depression, and can now prevent suicides. And I'm like, are we really doing this? And like I was just not into the whole thing, and I guess
second thought, this probably is Akasaka being like, if I had been there, I could have stopped this. If I would have done it like this, and then these kinds of scandals wouldn't happen.
I don't know what's going on in his head anymore at this point. But I think. And when I say that what kind of turned the episode around for me, I'm not saying this in a 100% positive way. I'm just saying it was enough where I didn't want to stop watching.
Right.
We see that Akane is not really okay by the end of the episode.
Well, this is
one
of
those
those
an interesting character. Like,
it is an interesting turn for her character that I think can get bit. Okay, this is like a classic like. I can't believe I'm using shonen terms to like explain this for a show like this. Akane feels like the classic case in a shonen manga of like a character that was sort of meant to be like a one-off bit character suddenly getting popular with the fan base. Absolutely. And so the writer has to write, actually, their real power was X, Y, and Z. They simply didn't display it in the previous tournament because it wasn't the right fit for their skill set, right?
Because that's exactly what it is. Let's not kid ourselves. Oshinoko is a shonen manga published in a shonen magazine. Right, it may not use the same it may not be like a battle manga, but it still uses the same tropes.
Because like they're literally like doing the fucking pro wrestling carny cope Akane struggled in a reality TV show because it's not used to her true style of acting. When fucking Kana is like, oh, you didn't know? Akane was a, in brackets, theatric actor.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, come on!
The Virgin impressing your co-stars with your method acting skills by sending them sex toys and dead rats versus the Chad impressing your co-stars with your method acting skills by imitating their mom.
It's a thing, right, of like, the show understands, maybe the show understands that, like, for people like me who are like on the edge of falling off that tightrope, it's like, alright, throw a real fucking banger of a cliffhanger at them that'll make them go, yeah, okay, I'll watch the next episode. And
that's the thing, like,
I've said last time I was on the podcast, that is that show, that is this show. It's just stuff.
And I don't even know or think that I like the twist. It's just interesting enough for me to stay on top of it. I'm like, all right, where are we going with this? But
yeah, Akane is an interesting character because, like, I'm reading the manga, right, for some reason, and when Akane showed up in the anime, I was like, huh, is that Akane? Like, I didn't even remember her being like this, looking like this, because she's gonna get a little change in her look that is like that she's gonna have for the rest of the story. And it's very interesting to see where she came from and how she is developing into what she is now in the manga. Like, I think the whole point of her character is like showing how Aqua's actions. See, I can call him Aqua. How Aqua's actions are like changing the people around him, and maybe not necessarily for the better. Like, they'll become more Machiavellian as they get swooped into his crusade or whatever. Like,
right. Yeah.
Which once again proves that Aquamarine is just like Yagami without the Death Note.
Yeah. He really is. I mean, and I don't think the show is always painting him in the most positive light, but
yeah,
he is clearly
they will
like
dunk on him, but yeah.
But I mean, I think it's a net positive, but it's not always positive. And I don't know, the fact that he is like, without question at this point, the center of the show, right? Like, it's tough when I hate the guy who's the center of the show. Like,
understandable.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was real close to just being like, what am I doing here? Why am I still watching this? And then by the end, it was just like, all right, this is just barely interesting enough.
It certainly seems weirdly compulsive. Like, all of you have spent a lot of time dumping on it, and yet you're all still watching.
It's like I just kind of want. It's like I just want to see what happens. Like, I'm not necessarily having fun, but it's like so.
Are we firmly into Code Geass R2 car crash territory here?
No.
We're not at that level. No.
It's not there.
But then again, I'm also someone who is actually interested in the criticism it has on the entertainment industry, because that shit is my jam. So I can sort of look beyond the whole, why aren't they, solving the murder, and why is Aqua such a prick, and the whole. Because I still I'm entertained by whatever the show is doing when it's not doing crazy twists. Yeah. But for someone who is mostly there for the crazy twists, I can definitely get the feeling that they're like being, it's the carrot on the stick, Yeah,
it's just when
you gotta keep watching. Maybe one day you'll get the carrot.
Yeah, it's like because they're, I guess, so willing to shake things up and throw you curveballs and stuff, like, that's kind of interesting to me. Like, I just want to see what happens, like, at the end of this episode, when you think, okay, Akane's all better now, and then say reveal her, all the pictures of Hoshino on the wall in her room and everything.
Oh no, we turned her into Daniel Day-Lewis.
and she comes back with literally
drink your milkshake.
Yeah, and she literally comes back with the stars in her eyes. I'm like, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's just that in the previous arc, Akane's Bankai had not yet been ripped. So
basically, yeah. So
so she really is a female character in Bleach. We only revealed her Bankai after everyone stopped caring.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
Yeah, let's move along. I think that probably has the most episodes left, right? So we'll
good news, guys. The next arc is all about Ruby.
Oh, I would take some Ruby.
Wait, is it actually, or are you joking?
I'm joking.
Oh, God damn it! Because I would gel. I would actually watch a Ruby arc. Like,
I'd be fine with a Ruby arc. Yeah.
Yeah, like, she's a dipshit, but she's not a fucking prick like Aquamarine is. So.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Birdie Wing, Golf Girl Story.
Anime the year, undisputed Birdie Wing.
As I was joking earlier, Aqua, you did put out a rather scathing post about your dissatisfaction with season 2.
Immune to criticism, Birdie Wing.
All right, so
I don't know, something's just snapped in me.
Yeah, I think we'll get to that in a second. I will say, while I definitely do not share your level of vitriol that you had in that post, I would probably concede that Eve's European tournament arc was maybe a little underwhelming, a little undercooked. Which is not to say I didn't think there was some really great content. Like, I would agree. I would agree. Like the Leo stuff, I think is a little weak. Like, I don't know what happened to Leo.
I think that's my main disappointment as regards the last few.
Because he's all of a sudden like all kind of cleaned up and like he has his like vaguely homoerotic flashbacks with Kazuhiko.
Vaguely.
Okay.
I will. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I will.
Go ahead. Yep. Sorry.
All right. I will contend. I do think the Leo stuff is a little bit half-baked compared to how he was introduced in season 1 as like amoral golf char Aznable, just picking up and discarding random young women and training them to become golf killers. And the sort of very kind of softball reveal that he just did it because he loved Kazuhiko's golf that much.
Just a guy who loves golf.
And it's like
also like I can't overstate how much mystique he loses by just carrying around a bunch of golf clubs and being a caddy. Like, they absolutely should not have had him do that.
Yeah, he's a character that was better the less screen time he had, if that makes sense.
Yes, most assuredly. I mean,
as this like
Leo
mythical,
was literally...
Yeah.
He is like the equivalent of like an enemy in a video game who is like super imposing, and then when you fight him in the boss fight, you just kick his ass in a minute. Like,
you're like, oh yeah, you could just stun lock him with light attack, yes, maybe Leo was at his strongest in season, in like his first introduction when we were all like, wait, is that Char Aznable?
Yeah.
I mean, the entire point of the character is to get Shuichi Ikeda to say as much stupid shit as possible. Like,
he said he's too old and infirm to voice Char Aznable, but he's fine phoning it in as just some golf dude.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, like, this speaking of the carrot of the stick, like, I think ever since Birdie Wing returned, it's had this thing of like, where we imagine, oh, this is a ridiculous thing it could do. This is a ridiculous thing it could do. Oh, he's golf Char Aznable. What is his super master plan? Or, oh, Eve is a clone of Aoi's mom, and they're going to play golf on the moon, and whatever. And every time we're like, no, it's not gonna be that. This show is unpredictable. It's going to be something we can't even imagine.
I mean, is that our fault or is that Birdie Wing's fault?
And I've just come to realize
a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B.
We're never gonna get that. Like, and the show is
2
just
episodes left.
Content being not nearly ridiculous enough.
See, I don't know. I can't
its own purpose.
I got to push back on this a little bit, right? I feel like, yes, like, have we not... Okay, first of all, we have gotten golf mafia bullshit in season 2, all right? We did have Eve going up against the lady with the fucking slippery sand or whatever.
Honestly,
however.
That felt like a pathetic rethread. Like...
But, I don't know. I think as someone who, like, look, let me be clear. I never got into Birdie Wing because I was expecting it to be, like, a serious sports anime or whatever. But, like, as somebody who does love those types of shows, like, is it maybe a little bit less, like surface level ridiculous as it was in season 1? I will contend to that. But I also think that, like, the ways in which it has embraced, like, the zaniness now applied to, like, sports anime tropes has been... I don't know, very entertaining to me, right?
But the thing is it that zany? Because, like, every episode...
She literally golfs so hard that, like, her arms are about to explode. Like...
Every episode has, like, 1 or 2 meme moments. And everything else is badly written soap opera. Not even the entertaining kind. Just the kind that is dull and underwhelming.
I think we're just going to fundamentally disagree on that one. But
I mean, I think that I get where you're coming from, Aqua. I get the sentiment. I think that the show is still good, goofy, pulpy fun. You know, like I think it's partially our fault for like building it up into this like meme, like whatever, you know. But I think that I also think that kind of like the narrative they have chosen to go with, which is like to move into these more tournament focused arcs, which makes it more like an actual sports anime.
Right.
Just inherently limits the amount of goofiness they can do. And do I think that's a mistake? Probably, yes. But
I don't know. Just have the same kind of weirdos that they had in the Mafia stuff show up in the tournaments. But no, it's just generic golf girl who hits ball hard, and we beat her by hitting the ball harder every single time.
I don't know. See, I gained like an endless amount of delight from like the entirety of Eve's quote unquote conflict in these 2 episodes, right? Of like, my opponent hit ball harder than me. I must hit ball harder with rainbows, right? And then it's like,
that's funny once, but this is what
I hit ball
for the
too
past
hard.
5 episodes.
I do think it was very funny that she had a like ultimate forbidden technique, and then revealed that she had an even more ultimate forbidden technique of her ultimate technique. Like that's the kind of structural silliness I could get behind.
And everybody being like, Ichida, you have to stop Eve from using the rainbow bullet burst. Like, it'll kill her. She'll never golf again. Right?
Yes.
And Eve is like, fuck you, I'm built different.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something delightful to me about that.
This conversation had me thinking about the current gold standard of mixing things that shouldn't belong, which is Kiba Made War.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think with that show, because you had the mix of the like Maid Cafe show with the Yakuza hard-boiled crime drama, and if it tried to be one of those things on its own, it probably would have been pretty like basic and not very good. But that show is entertaining because of the sheer absurdity of the context of like what they were doing, mixed with the cute Maid Cafe thing, right? Like some of the dialogue that they were spitting out.
And so I fully acknowledge that Birdie Wing also does that and does it well. The problem is they've structurally fucked up by putting all the weird ass goofy mafia shit first, and now we're just doing the same thing except this time it's real golf.
I think you might also be forgetting the second half of season 1. The school stuff was also not that. I mean, crazy. Like,
I also think the second half of season 1 was a significant downgrade. So
I'm saying we've gone, because we did the mafia, we went to school, we did the mafia again, and then now we're back to it's not school, but it's kind of the same idea where we're back to basically tournaments, playing actual golf, right? Mm-hmm. No, but what I was saying is like, the fact that we can get, it doesn't need to be like wild somebody shooting rocket launchers out of a car, which did happen all the time, for it to be absolutely absurd and to me still entertaining. Like
the thing is,
like when we get stuff in this episode, like Aisha, who's supposed to be like 10 or 11 years old or something, giving a speech.
I think she might be slightly older than that.
All right, maybe 12 at most or something. Yeah. We get her saying ridiculous dialogue about the scent of a wounded animal or something like that, I'm like, yeah, I am on board with this. Like
the whole thing where she's like questionably portrayed as like a Tarzan style wild child, like which
I mean, up until this episode she didn't even talk.
Yeah, and then, like doing the Happy Gilmore run up and smash the ball, and it turns into a cannon. Come on,
yeah,
like that's
all. How could I forget? I've only seen it 5 times.
Yeah, it was great every time.
It was great every time.
I think what Joe's trying to say is that like and correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, Joe, but like it's a sentiment I share that sometimes the low key silliness is like just as much of the fun as like the big headlining goofy stuff. Like I honestly found the idea that like that like the mysterious butler was a formidable golfer himself back in the day and also looked exactly the same, and also that he's a trained acupuncturist is like super funny.
See, exactly.
But the thing is, I acknowledge that. That is funny. I also like that about Birdie Wing, but the last couple of episodes, it's gotten predictable. It's exactly, and the whole thing is just, I recognize that because that is what happens in an anime. She had a secret move, and now she has an even better secret move. Oh, the guy is secretly cool. The old guy was secretly cool. They did the I am also a certified X joke 2 episodes ago. Like, they just... I have the feeling they're spinning their wheels,
All right. I think maybe what's happening here is that, like, to a certain extent, at least for you, Aqua, is this a case of familiarity breeds contempt? Because I'm of the mind that I don't think the jokes have gotten any worse in Birdie Wing. I don't think that the antics have gotten any worse for me personally, but I will contend that they are probably the same kinds of antics that this show has been doing for nearly 2 seasons now. And personally, I have a tolerance for it. Heck, I have a gluttony for it. I enjoy this anime being, like, on this specific track. But, like... But I guess if what you are looking for specifically from Birdie Wing is a continual escalation that, like, surprises and catches you off guard...
Yeah.
I think it is definitely settling into sort of a pattern.
I think I would agree, because I don't think the show is doing anything really that different than what it's been the whole time. But if it is doing the same thing, and if you are tired of the same thing, then yeah, it's going to start to drag.
I just get the feeling that whatever the show is trying to be doesn't really, for me at least, doesn't really work if you don't escalate.
Yeah,
it just feels stagnant.
Well, we have one more golfer left in the OP, so,
And she looks boring, and she's going to be boring.
Maybe she can go Super Saiyan or something. We just haven't seen it yet.
I find it weird that we started off the show with, like, Viper and Rose, who had distinctive designs, and Eve was wearing, like, horrible fashion disaster outfits, and Aoi was cosplaying as an angel, and now they all wear, like, boring ass golf clothes, and they play against boring golfers. Like,
I mean, I think I get it, but I also think that, like, continuous escalation is a dangerous path, right? Because at some point, it stops being fun. You have to know when to escalate, and I think in theory, the escalation now is that the stakes are higher because they are playing for a position in the pro ranks. And look, I ain't claiming that Birdie Wing is Shakespeare or something, like, it's a very shallow story. But I like the characters enough that I do have some investment in what ultimately happens to them. And so, like, I'm kind of... I'm still rooting for them to succeed, and that to me provides the connection to the story, even when perhaps the humor or lack thereof doesn't live up to its end of the bargain.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering that if we had this second part in a vacuum, and it was not Birdie Wing, and it didn't have the 2 designated meme moments every episode.
I mean, you have already offered way too many disclaimers on that.
Yeah,
now you're asking, like, what if we watched a
show?
Like a completely different show halfway through? Like, it is a continuous story. Like, we are still building off of the first
thing
half.
Is, I'm saying it becoming more conventional has shown that as a piece of writing, this show just isn't very good.
I mean, I feel like we knew that from the first.
Yeah,
one.
bro, it's Birdie Wing.
Like, we have not been big fans of this show because it is a gripping, well-written character drama,
Right, but they seem to know that, and that was funny. And now they don't know that anymore. Now they expect us to...
I don't know about that.
Like,
I think...
Look, if you're saying that... Like,
why would you willingly make someone watch 10 minutes of bad soap opera?
I mean,
I thought. Now
all over the world.
I mean, now we're getting. So now this is just getting into opinion at this point because I thought all of the soap opera stuff was great. I loved it.
Kind of into like
drank that all up.
Like I think obviously everything we say on this podcast is subjective, but I think that like I said, I do have an attachment to the characters, and that means de facto I'm interested in what they do. And, would I have been this attracted to the characters if the show had been about a bunch of golf tournaments from the start? Probably not. But guess what? It wasn't about that. And therefore I am attached to the characters. And therefore I still at least have some interest in, like, is it as funny as it used to be? No. Is it as, like, wacky as it used to be? Also no. But part of that is familiarity breeding contempt, right? It's very hard for any show to like, come up with new tricks constantly over 20 plus episodes, and I think that I think that the established strengths that the show has are enough for me at this point.
And just going back to my point when I was comparing to Akiba Maid-War, because I don't know if I actually brought that full circle, but using like the soap opera melodrama as an example, like if it was just that, then like if we were watching a literal show about I don't know, take the drama with the adults and who's in love with who and all that, and you made that like just a show about that, it would be it'd be boring and I wouldn't care. But the fact that it's so absurd because it's put in a world where the context where golf is, we're actually talking about golf, right? And it's like just that makes it so much more like ridiculous to watch, and I find that entertaining. Like when Coach Amuro is like dying because he sacrificed himself to make these golf clubs for Alloy, and he's like, this is the first and last gift that your parents will ever give you. And the fact, like if that was like meant to be like seriously taken on its own in like a serious context, like if he was like really sick, like with a normal illness, and like he was just giving a present to his daughter, that it might be fine, but that's kind of boring. But the fact that it's in the context of we're talking about golf, it just makes it so.
I mean, it's like this is like one of those things.
But the joke has been we're talking about golf for 20 episodes.
That's what we're getting at.
That's funny anymore.
Like, that's what we're getting at now. We're kind of getting into opinion where,
right? Like,
okay, if you don't think it's funny anymore, then that's yes, they are. I think we all agree they are basically doing the same joke over and over again. Right. It's just whether you still like it or not.
And I mean, like, I think that's a thing, right? Because, like, for me personally, like, the whole, like, you're pushing yourself too hard, you're going to give yourself a permanent injury is like sports anime trope 101. Like, it's done in literally every single sport. Football, basketball, baseball, like tennis, it doesn't matter, right? It always comes up. It's always the whole, like, if you push that injury too far, you'll never play again. And but I've yet to see a sports anime where the protagonist walks in with literally every limb covered in bandages, right? Like, it's like, that is where, like, that's where it takes the generic trope and then, like, for me anyways, personally, pokes fun at the patent absurdity of it and takes it to the next level. And, I get a good laugh out of it, but
I mean, just to kind of cap off this discussion, like, I want to emphasize that, like, Birdie Wing's kind of trash, and that's fine. Sometimes it's fine to like trash. Like, is it uneven? Is it like relying on, a limited amount of jokes? Yeah, these are all true things, but this is not an attempt to like scientifically rank all the anime in the world. For that, there's our other podcast. No. But like, I think, like, would I want to watch more than half an hour of Birdie Wing a week? Maybe not, but I think that, like, its absurdity is comfortable. Its stakes are still melodramatic, and like I said, I have a fondness for the characters, whether they've earned it or not. And at the end of the day, sometimes it's fine not to be to enjoy the kind of like glibness of it all. You know, I think if you start to look below the surface of Birdie Wing, you won't find anything because it's a show built entirely on shallow goofs. You know, but that's fine sometimes. You know, I'm still enjoying it because of that, not even in spite of that, because of that.
Right.
So yeah, next episode they're probably going to the moon, right?
Are we back to going to the final tournament? They have to go play on the moon.
Okay, so the final golfer will be she's been cryogenically frozen. Yeah, I don't know. You know, I do hope that they escalate a little for the ending. But
right, like, I mean, if we're being serious for a second, right? Like, is the last tournament probably going to be a relatively normal golf tournament? Just Eve and Aoi are there, and this third person is here too? Probably, but I think...
Almost certainly.
As always, right, it's going to be in the details where we find our fun, you know? And... like... I mean, you know, at the end of the day, right, it's like, because this whole thing's been building up to the whole, like, Eve-Aoi thing, right? It's like, they have somehow managed to cheat us out of an actual head-to-head between those two, like, for 20 episodes, right? Yeah. So...
Also, at some point, someone is going to hit a hole-in-one, and we have to be there to see that.
So, this is our last chance to speculate. How are they going to find a way for them to tie? Because I don't think they're gonna. Okay. I don't think they're gonna let one of them win.
So here's my theory. All of reality is just shadows on the wall of a cave, and I have no fucking idea.
We're doing it. See, we are the problem.
We are. No, I understand why Aqua's furious at us. I totally get it.
This is what Aqua's trying to tell us. We are the problem.
But also it's funny to speculate about this show like this.
Like, some of the fun of following along with a goofy show is to make goofs about it, right? Like,
yes,
right.
You know,
like, this is like,
I honestly have no idea how they're going to end. You know, like, my prediction is that they will tie and then they will kiss, and then I don't know.
They're not going to kiss.
No, they probably won't, will they?
They probably won't, but
they'll cheap out. They'll coward out at the last second. Like anime always does.
I do think they will draw.
Yeah, they'll get as close as they can possibly can to kissing without actually kissing, whatever that means. But yeah, yeah, no, there's definitely gonna be a draw. They can't possibly let one of them win at this point.
Okay, here's the actual question: will there, like, are we done with Gunpla cameos? Will there be any more Gunpla in this show?
Oh man, now that they're no longer, well, now that Eve is no longer in Japan, I've been losing faith in getting one more Gunpla cameo.
But all the Gunpla happened when we were not in Japan. Like,
oh yeah, you're right.
it's a long shot, but I think you could get like a shot in the epilogue when Lily gets her last like one. Camera shot,
just a room full of
and after now that Eve is an international golf star, she like sends her, you know, a pile of Gunpla or something. That's our last.
You sure something like that?
That's our last chance for a Gunpla cameo. But yeah,
we'll see how it goes anyway.
All right. Well, Birdie Wing maybe not the anime of the year. Oh no, I'm not. I can't say that. But.
You people have a sickness.
Yeah, we do.
I'm sorry, Aqua. It's just too much fun. All right, let's move on to probably a more conventional anime of the year contender, and talk about
what if that lady has laser eyes.
Is it? I don't know, Gel. I've seen some people online complaining about what a slideshow the last episode of Heavenly Delusion was.
Yeah,
okay, firstly, fuck those people.
Where's my in-between frames, bro?
Yeah, so we are talking about
universal
Heavenly
law of
Delusion.
anime. Fewer frames, funnier. Okay.
Welcome to the Canada school, bitch.
I have to say,
this is how we do animation.
I have to say Tengoku Daimakyo because that's the official English title now. So
thanks, Hulu.
So yeah, we get interesting pair of episodes. You guys have already diving into the second part here, but in general,
these episodes, like the thing, like I've praised Heavenly Delusion in the past for like being good about switching up its dramatic and comedic sides, right? Like, I think this is another example of that, but I think they are really pushing to the absolute limit in some of
This is the
these.
most aggressive they've been about the style switching up till now, I think.
Yes.
And
literally and figuratively, but yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we should talk about the first episode since it's sort of more conventional of the two, right? So it's kind of takes place immediately after the extremely emotionally distraught events of the hospital, I guess, and it's a bit of a stress valve episode, right? Yeah, where we kind of get back to just what is this show about? It's about these two kids, exploring the apocalypse and getting into memorable and sometimes off-kilter adventures, and it's kind of exactly what happens in at least their half of the story, where they meet Juichi, who is a self-proclaimed information broker, who claims to have some knowledge that may be of use to Kiriko and Maru, right?
Okay, so before we go any further, I must talk about my favourite part of this episode, which is the way that the show expertly sets up the idea that it knows that they are going to do the joke where they give him the money and then rather than moving the van, he will just drive off in the van and then completely pulls it out from under you when he does that. I really like that. When he does exactly what he says he's going to do.
Because he realizes that he can even make more money off of them by, telling them his YouTube creepypasta story.
Right. Yes. And I think the thing that's really delightful about this episode is it is again that reminder that, like, initially they do explore a little bit of the tension that I think would happen in a post-apocalypse of meeting a stranger, right? And it's like Kiriko is definitely like hand on her hip, like she's not necessarily expecting a fight, but she's certainly ready if one comes, right? And it's that realization that, like, most people aren't out here to just murder people indiscriminately, right? Like, Juichi's here to make a buck, and if he can scam a couple of gullible kids in the process, he'll do it. But
I think a really neat detail, like a tiny little detail, like is how impressed they are that he's got a car. Like, even though he plays it down, they're like, "Oh, you've got a car!" Like,
but I know what you're saying, G, because in most other shows, like, you're just waiting for this guy to double cross them, right?
I mean, he's got that design, right? He's got the design of somebody in the post-apocalypse who's going to betray the group, immediately, right?
Which is why what I will say is that it's so effective when they subvert that, and then they subvert it, and then at the last minute they again pull the rug from you when it turns out that he does betray them in a form like.
Well, yes. I mean,
like, spoilers. That's the end of the next episode,
right? In a way that's more complicated than just
absolutely.
Right.
But like, it's a good, like, I think sometimes when you present characters as comedic and then, like, reveal actually they're dark, it can be clumsy and, like, pathetic. But I think actually, like, they build his character enough up that like, when that turn happens, and because of the context in which that turn happens, it feels more like a realization, like the audience is reminded that, oh, hey, this is the post-apocalypse. Sometimes, like, even the goofy ones can be dangerous sometimes.
Just to give like a brief recap, right? So kind of what happens here is initially Kiriko and Maru want some more questions on the mysterious bird emblem that, is on their gun. And they meet Juichi, right? This info broker who claims to have some information about that. But first, he's going to get his money's worth by telling a couple of, like, total non sequiturs that may or may not be more related to the plot than they initially appear, right? Like, the first of the stories is very much that speculative, like, some say this is what ended the world. Others
this guy
say,
is basically like an NPC who, like, spreads quote-unquote rumors that refer to side quests you can get in other parts of the world.
And sort of the fun of that, right, is, like, is he telling a tall yarn? Honestly, he kind of is. On the other hand, do you not see a flying angelic form in one of his flashbacks that sort of looks similar to Azura? And
I mean, that's
true.
That's kind of like the secret Trojan horse of plot importance that they slip in there as well. But like,
which definitely feeds fuel to the speculation, of course, that the Academy. I almost said the word there.
The farm.
Yes, that those are potentially taking place in the distant past.
Also, we shouldn't underestimate the fact that this episode reveals that Asura was just straight up an alien dude.
Yes,
like,
yes. Also, yes,
like
that
a
is
weird, like grey.
Yeah, that is the Academy half of this episode, right, where we find out that, in some regards, it seems that Kona or Azura may have been Kona's first love, or at least very close friend or family relationship, right?
It's
being that
deliberately left a little ambiguous.
They were the first. We were told that they were the oldest generation of the children at the academy, and that they were the only two left at that point. Before Azura gives some very cryptic words to Kona before, I guess, psychically hanging herself, which is
Wait, I thought Azura was a he. He's been referred to as a he in the past.
Wait, really? Oh,
yes.
I thought the sub said she.
I thought so too, but
really,
I don't really remember.
I feel like
think
when the
character is generally referred to as she in on
really
Wikipedia and stuff.
I could have sworn that because I could have sworn when they first talk about him, when they first talk about them, it's like the head of the facility calls Asura male, but I could be mistaken. In any case, it's not materially important. In fact,
right?
So yeah.
Other than that, Azura is a character that is implied to know because of their, implied, Azura is the most obviously different looking child we've seen at the facility so far, and seems to have some awareness of what is going on beyond the other children.
Like the children have sort of, like, over the course of the show, we've sort of had some weird, sort of very loose illusions that they may be psychic or possess some form of power beyond human, but Azura is like straight up like levitating and like healing people's wounds, and
right,
like although they very clearly and quite nastily commit physical suicide, it's kind of implied that there's something beyond human there that lives on, right? Like,
right. I mean,
it seems almost like an ascension of sorts.
Yeah. When you have a character with these sorts of ambiguous higher level powers, right? There's always that, like, is that just the physical form that has died? Sort of speculation. And there may be some truth to it, right? Because we do know that, or we see Mimihime has a vision, in the following episode. But this is all sort of like stepping around the other reveal of the first of these two episodes, which is that Tokyo is pregnant.
Yeah, well, I mean, we kind of knew that, but
yes.
I mean, again, that Darling in the Franxx energy going strong here. Although I will say that, like, I was immediately like, please do not let the medical staff be as stupid as they were in Darling in the Franxx.
Yeah.
I think they're not, because they immediately realised.
I feel like that's kind of, even though we've kind of arrived at similar places of Darling in the Franxx, I feel like we're dealing with much different themes here, right?
Yes,
like, it's much different context,
and,
but
like, I think this sets up like a low-key background mystery, which obviously will become higher key, but like the doctors seem terrified. Like, they seem absolutely scared shitless, but nobody suggests aborting the baby or anything like that.
Right? They say it's going to be born, right?
Yes, I think you are keying onto some important. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, you're led to believe that they're going to abort it because Tokyo says, like, very soon I'll have this thing that's growing inside me out, but it's later made clear through, like, the actions of the staff and the adults that, like, actually no, they're just going to let her give birth. And
well, I think they literally say it, right? Yeah,
but also they're really like terrified of what is going to happen.
I think there's some fun speculation to be had here, right? Because, like, obviously one of the biggest mysteries of the show has been, what are the aims of the Academy, right? Like, what are they actually trying to achieve here? And it's very easy to just think, oh, generic, like, authoritarian, dark purposes, right? Which, to be fair, might still be true, but there is certainly some nuance to it, I guess.
I mean,
the
show has done a very good job of laying just enough story breadcrumbs to keep you engaged without ever revealing explicit information about what this institute is, when it is, where it is, what it is doing. You know, like they've done pretty well at playing all those cards very close to their chest.
And I continue to find that the thing I continue to find interesting with that side of the story is like I get the impression the adults don't really know what's going on, and they're also trying to figure something out. I don't know, but
I think there's definitely that aspect that has been laid well in the show, right? Because
usually when you get that type of story, you know, there's some kind of grand evil plan that the that the adults have or something, and I don't feel like they're at least inherently evil. I think they're.
I mean,
they seem to just not really know what's going on.
I mean, like
and
the
you're
whole
trying to
vibe seems to be very much we are doing this because it is humanity's only hope. Or
I mean, there's a little bit of a vibe even in these episodes that they're kind of flying by the seat of their pants too.
Yeah,
right?
and that's enjoyable, right? Like
they don't actually. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like when they cremate Taro's body and they find the man-eater core in it. They don't actually have a good answer to what's going on, right? Like the adults at the facility are like, "What the fuck is that?" Right?
Yeah, it's not like there's a Gendo Akari sitting at the top watching everything and everything's
nobody's
going according to
steepling their
plan.
fingers,
except maybe that AI, which seems to run.
Yes.
Well, that would be a different. But that would be like a different take on it, right? So that I find that interesting. But
yeah, it definitely makes it for an interesting change of pace for this style of like story, where like even. You know, because obviously, you know, like the most obvious comparison in recent memory is probably like a Promised Neverland, right? Where it's like the jailers know exactly what they're doing and they know what the children are trying to do.
Right.
And what's sort of fun here is like even the jailers are not necessarily that in the know.
And also, again, you know, the show has been so good at like divorcing these two stories almost completely from each other. Again, like I think it was Iroh who proposed last episode that the farm, the academy segments take place in the past, and the thing that they're trying to prevent is the thing which ultimately caused the destruction of civilization, right? They're talking about a day of judgment which is approaching, but and that seems a likely, compelling theory, but at the same time we have no real, so like it's interesting. I'm a little wary because you know, so much of modern media is based around like the puzzle box story of keep the audience engaged by stringing them along in a mystery, and it's very hard to like satisfactorily answer that mystery without either being an anticlimax or just like a complete non sequitur.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you, Zig. Like, this is not even me speaking with like foreknowledge. Like, the manga's not done, right? So,
well, yes, that's the other thing is that we will probably not get answers to most of these.
So,
questions.
there's a reason why even I'm glad you guys are enjoying the story as much as you are, but there's a reason why when we did the preview podcast, I was like. I hope this is good.
Yeah.
Like, I hope they pull it off because, like, I honestly, even I don't really know if they can, you know, like there are, there's going to be mysteries introduced in this anime that probably won't get answered in the 13 episodes they're doing. Right. And
I mean, I think it's clear now that means most of them at this point.
Yeah.
And like this episode, like these two episodes even introduce a few more. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we might as well get into the second of these episodes.
Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, fortunately, like what we have had is sort of kind of a lot of episodic type of little mini arcs or mini stories, one-off stories of the people that they're meeting on their journey here.
Yeah,
and I think that works well. So that when we do get to the end, even if we don't get the big mystery solved, it's still going to be like a satisfying. Hopefully experience.
Right. It's very much helped that the show is not dependent on the mystery to be entertaining.
Yeah, right? It's interesting. It's there, and they give you your little breadcrumbs, which is fun. Yeah. But the I feel like the meat of the show has been like these little like personal stories, right?
And I think this is a case where the production of the show has actually benefited from the fact that there is no known ending, because it means that we can take these little diversions and let the story breathe a little.
Right. We can spend 2 episodes on Juichi's little background here thing, right?
Although, again, there is an interesting like mystery which ties into some of the main questions.
It's a nice combo, nice mix.
So we find out that basically Juichi's very like B movie exploitation film backstory about coming from this dystopian village run entirely by women where they keep the men in cages.
I read this on 4chan once.
I know, right? It's kind of out there, but you know, look, it is also the post-apocalypse though, so it is one of those things where it's like, I mean, in a lot of ways, isn't post-apocalyptic fiction always like sort of meant to be a vehicle for exploring what if society but different? And
yo, bro, wouldn't it be fucked up if etc.
Yeah, exactly. So we kind of find that yes, Juichi was indeed a male slave of a female-run commune, and that he had a son, or he had a child with two sympathetic members of that commune, or a couple, I guess a lesbian couple who used him as a surrogate, or to have a child. And that the three of them were planning to escape together, but unfortunately, Juichi seems to have been the only one to have survived the escape. But he does not know what happened to his biological son, and he is desperate to find some answers, and sort of hires on Kiriko and Maru to investigate for him. And it turns out that where this commune is near one of the addresses listed in the flyer, the Academy flyer that they find in the previous episode. And that's sort of all just a prelude to the part where this episode was storyboarded and directed by Trigger's young ace, Kai Igarashi, who you may know for... Yes, you may know him for, oh wow, why was that episode of Gridman and Dynazenon so fucking good? Well, It was Kai Igarashi.
And also kind of weird and completely different from the rest of the show.
Yes. He also did the main episode of Cyberpunk Edge Runners. And
I will say that the early parts of this episode have more Fooly Cooly energy than anything I've seen.
Oh yeah, no, I mean,
Fooly Cooly.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can trace the DNA back through Trigger all the way to Gynax.
Somebody because somebody. Because people, they're I'm not going to give them actual breathing room, but some of the detractors of this episode have been like, wow, this is so off model and weird looking, even by Trigger standards. And it's like, have you actually seen screenshots of Fooly Cooly?
And somebody posted this great Kill la Kill,
right, and somebody posted, I'll have to find it later, but someone posted this great compilation of Haruko's faces across the 6 episodes of Fooly Cooly, and it's like, she's practically a different character in
the thing I don't understand about that criticism is that already, even before this, Heavenly Delusion has not been afraid to do cartoony faces or art shifts when.
Right. I think it's probably just because this is the most aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
They change style every 30 seconds.
Kiriko's face. I mean, Kiriko has some really delightful faces this episode.
Yeah.
Let's be clear.
Also, there's one point where they just turn into human sausages and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, particularly the bits when they're getting frozen. It literally changes within frame to frame.
Yes.
I mean, different styles.
This is
right?
a lot of
it's loose. Let's say.
In a lot of ways, this is that reminder that Kai Igarashi is one of the true inheritors of the Kaneda style, right? Which for those unfamiliar is a very specific style of animation that sort of gets, spearheaded by Gynax primarily, right? And its adherents, right? Your Amaishis, your Yoshinaris, etc., right? Where it is sort of characterized by stiffer animation with fewer in-betweens, but a greater emphasis on individual frame composition and intensity. And the thing about the Kaneda style, right, is it is willing, that I think Kai Igarashi really embodies, right, is that it is willing to be loose, right? It is willing to be kind of kooky and cartoony when the time calls for it, but also the Kaneda style is responsible for, the mass production Eva fight in, end of Evangelion, right?
Although, to be fair, let's give credit to a major assist from the music there as well.
Oh, of course, yes. But what I'm saying, right, is they're the Kaneda style is capable of these really impressive degrees of intensity where it calls for it, right? And so
it's a style which emphasizes kineticism.
Yeah.
And so obviously that plays very well in some scenes as opposed to others.
Yeah, like all the fucking animation during like the ice, like so. Yeah, they go to the commune where it's already been abandoned, and it turns out that a man eater has taken up residence there with ice powers, right? And man, the animation there is like it's fuck. I mean, yeah, it's another like hard style shift, but it's so fucking cool. Like. And I think like the background work in this episode is more on point than it's ever been. Just these like delightfully cluttered human feeling backgrounds, right? Just all this like just stuff in the background. Like they use the abandoned school to such a good degree, right?
This is part of why we love watching anime and not like, just trying to recreate. Like we don't want to watch something that's trying to recreate photorealism, or at least not all the time, right?
Exactly.
We want something that's using the medium to express the mood and what's happening, even if it's not a literal 1-to-1 translation of what it would look like if it were really happening, right? Like it's
yeah.
My only reservation here is that the opening of the episode is so goofy that it kind of And it's not a fatal problem or anything, but
it is jarring.
It does sort of like calibrate your brain to make it a little difficult to take, especially the stuff that happens in the immediate aftermath, perhaps with the level of seriousness that it needs.
Right. And while the show has had its goofy moments, this is like 10 times past the next level.
I mean, it very much sets, I mean, the slideshow at the beginning very much sets the tone of like, okay, yep,
it is one of those episodes. It is admittedly a big departure from what the show has done, so it is a bit jarring in that sense. But standing on its own, I think it works.
I think you gain much more from it than you lose. I'm just saying, like there is some stuff on the other.
It's definitely different.
And in hindsight, I will say like. Because there's a reason why I said this is an interesting part of the story to give to Kai Igarashi, but in hindsight, it really it kind of perfectly fits with like his style, right? Like because there's the part of the story where it is the classic monster of the week part, right? With a little bit of weird post-apocalyptic social commentary, but like Kai Igarashi takes it to let me tell you, a lot of the stuff is not found in the manga. Like all of Juichi's flashbacks, I
was gonna say like he's
the arc of like the red Sentai like keychain is not in the manga. Like using that as the sort of like
connecting piece. Yeah,
I pointed out that keychain actually looks a lot like Prince Sidon, and it's
does it? Afterwards. Yeah, But yeah, like using it in like all these like really like cool compositions, like the desaturated flashbacks where like that little keychain is the only piece of red, and then like how that connects to like the very intense use of red at the very end of the episode when the other shoe falls.
Yeah, I mean, let's put it out there. Like the thing which happens at the end of this episode, it's so basically like they find the remnants of the society. Juichi's son is fine, So there are two, and like they shack up with them, and Juichi implies that he's going to stay with his ex fellow prisoners and raise his son. And so there's two things which happen at the end of this episode which are fairly shocking and raise some questions. The first thing is that it's revealed that Juichi's son has supernatural powers. He has
specifically ice powers.
Yeah,
right. The same as the Man-Eater.
Yeah, the abilities of the Man-Eater who wiped out the original prison village. And what's remarkable about this is that how unremarkably the show treats it. Like this is the problem, which is I can't tell whether this is deliberate or whether it's a narrative oversight, because like the benefit of the doubt leads me to conclude that it's deliberate, but it's hard to square that with the way we know the characters would react, right? Because honestly, like they're worried about what the baby can do, but not about what the baby is, and it seems... It seems weird that they don't make a bigger deal of it.
Well, I think from the characters, we know more than the characters, right? So that gives us a lot more to speculate and play with. And I think
Right,
they say, I forget exactly what they say at the end, what Kiriko says at the end, but they basically say, we did our job. It's not our problem
right, but
anymore.
she even makes a joke about it, like, hope
Right.
your son doesn't freeze you to death. And it's like,
I guess
be,
it's like
freaking the fuck out.
I guess this is like one of those aspects where it's like you almost have to like just accept the like explanation that, well, it's a post-apocalypse and these two have seen a lot of weird stuff in their adventures.
And
but
I mean,
I do agree it is a little weird that they are just completely nonplussed about it.
It is a little weird. I guess it's like
the previous arc was all about like preventing this lady from developing, like preventing a human man-eater like hybrid from being born, and it's weird.
I mean, even in that case, though, I think they left that decision to, I can't remember the doctor's name, but
but
they're kind of just doing whatever they're,
I mean, I think
letting people decide what they want to do with their own.
For as well-meaning and generally jovial as Kiriko and Maru are, they kind of are just traveling mercenaries, right? I mean, Kiriko doesn't even finish off the man-eater at the school. Like, they confirm they blast off a piece of it, and she's like, we did our job. Like, I'm not, it's not worth getting killed over
it's not even like that they're being like cold about it per se. It's more like, what are they going to do, right? Like they only have their own limited resources.
Right.
To begin with, but
I'm just saying that like the show has made like the human man-eater connection such a like core tenet of what we know about the mystery, and like because basically the entire show has been hinting that like there is some connection between the children in the school and like Maru's special ability and man-eaters. Like we've seen that Kona's drawings end up becoming monsters. We've seen that Asura's, that kind of stuff. So like for them to throw this out there felt weird and wrong.
Well, that's the thing is like I think it does work because it on the one hand it's a clue for us who knows all that information, and then from Kiriko and Maru's point, they don't know all that information. So what are they going to do about it? Like based on the information that they have, like what else are they going to do if he decides he wants to keep the kid? Then that's his choice.
I do get where Zig is coming from, though, where I think maybe the scene would have benefited from just a throwaway line from Kiriko saying, like, "Well, what else can we do about it?" Right?
Yeah, like
I think it's just that not having that room to breathe does make it feel a little bit of a jarring decision in universe.
Yeah. So the other big thing which happens at the end of this episode is it's revealed that actually one of the dudes who came to see Juichi and was looking after his son was in fact the person who sold out him.
Yeah, the snitch, the narc.
And so Juichi kills that dude really dead, and
in
then
cold blood, and
steals the car and escapes.
With
and
his son.
It's a really effective, like, we brought you crashing down to earth.
Yeah, I really loved the way the anime handles this twist, because like in a lot of ways that we talk about how it's a post-apocalypse, so people generally aren't like horrible to each other. This is one of those reminders. It's a post-apocalypse, and like there's no rule of law preventing you from committing what you believe to be a just killing, right? Like Juichi feels entirely justified to kill this man, who, in all likelihood, like there's even this is all you ever get, even in the manga. There is that scene when they're having dinner where that same guy seems like he's about to say something to Juichi, and it's like, maybe he feels remorse. Maybe he was about to apologize. Maybe he was about to take responsibility for his actions. We'll never know. Juichi didn't care to hear them, right?
Right. And at the same time, it's that dude kind of killed two people and almost three people.
I mean, yeah, totally. I mean, we see explicitly that the two women are, at least in the flashback, they are hanged corpses, right? This man, his actions did in fact kill people. So in some regards, maybe Juichi was justified to murder this dude. But also,
it's hard to say. But it is like the thing which makes it so effective is that when Maru and Kiriko leave, it is on such a hopeful note, and that generally this has been...
it ends on a stupid joke where they can't get the car started.
Yeah, exactly. And then it is a hard cut to that, a corpse with his throat cut. I think I think that there's a reasonable argument that you can make that this is just perhaps like shock for shock's sake, but I think it's also, I think like the counter argument there is that it's a reminder that, you know, where is it that they say, I think it's from the Sandman, where they say that like stories only have happy endings if you stop in the right place, right? And here it's like, oh,
we kept it going. Yes,
there are other things happening beneath the surface.
It's a very effective use of keeping the camera rolling,
right? Yeah. And you know, I think it adds. I think it's important in a post-apocalyptic setting, even in this one, which is, you know, like one of the milder post-apocalypses. Like civilization still exists in a limited form. You know, it's important to keep that kind of frisson of danger there, right? That kind of reminder. And because we have spent the best part of 2 episodes establishing Juichi as like this fucking comedy goofy loser who is like trying to scam these kids out of a buck, and like the switch to kind of this very cold clinical violence is super effective.
I really like it because, you know, the thing I was saying earlier, right, about the thing that gets established about Juichi is he's a con man, he's a bit of a carny, but also like at no point in his meeting with Kiriko do you ever truly get the feeling he's going to attempt to commit physical violence upon them.
I mean, right? He shows them that circular saw, which he does kill the guy with.
Yes,
and like,
that's what makes the turn in the second episode.
I was just going to say it's treated as a goof because it is such an excessive solution, right? Like, it's like I'll saw their arms off, and then like when you,
it's a very violent way to kill someone,
right? And then when he actually does use it, and then it's almost that cool thing of like retroactively, then you realize, oh no, actually, even as far back as when he first met Kiriko, this man was probably always capable of murder. Just he did not feel the need to commit that hard when meeting these two, but when he finally finds somebody that he holds this degree of animus for, he does not seem to hesitate.
Whew. Yeah, I mean,
it's also one last shout out.
Go
again, Kai Igarashi is such a fucking like good and devious director. When Juichi is like given his like monologue spiel to the seemingly corpse of the man he's killed, and then there's just that slight twitch of the body at the very end, and it's like, is that just it's that lovely thing of like, is that just the unconscious twitch of a dead man? Is that a man who is hearing Juichi give this monologue? And
I mean, let's be clear, that dude is dead either way. It is the question is he dead now?
Right. It just
did
what
he
I
hear,
mean is like,
right? Did he
hear what Juichi said? And is that the dying gurgles of someone attempting to say and the fact that it's just left entirely ambiguous is. Oh man, Kai Igarashi. We need to get that man a TV show. He's been directing all these episodes, and
the thing I will say, like just to wrap this up, is that part of what makes Heavenly Delusion so attractive to me is that it is interesting in a lot of different ways. Right? It's got interesting visuals, it's got interesting themes, it's got interesting writing. You know, it's got interesting characters. You know, the show is not always at 100% on every episode, and like sometimes I think there are things you can question about it, but the strength in depth makes it so that you always feel you take something away, even if the main point didn't hit. There's still a lot of things that make watching it worthwhile.
Right.
Yeah. It's pretty good. Okay. Let's wrap things up here with Mobile Suit Gundam, The Witch from Mercury.
Okay, so let me lay this out for you.
Okay.
What if I could stop Space Hitler before he happened?
Okay.
But would you kill baby Space Hitler? Is that the question?
Well, no. The thing is, if I sacrifice myself by becoming Space Hitler now, I can make sure that there will be no more Space Hitlers in the future.
How many times has that happened?
There's sound reasoning here.
How many times has that happened in Gundam before?
Every single time.
All right. Well,
It was a Gundam episodes here.
Gundam, the Witch from Mercury.
They are definitely leaning on some classic tropes and themes.
I know we could get a lot into the most recent episode that we've all just watched today, but I got to give some shout outs to the prior of these two episodes where it is sort of the aftermath of Suletta losing now Ariel and Miorine, and is finally broke down. She's gone full neat mode. She won't leave her room. And,
shout outs to her going full Homer Simpson and eating ham out of the fridge.
Yes, everybody has called attention to Suletta. All Suletta, he just eating food directly out of the fridge. Truly, the depression representation we all needed in
one of
us. I have to say, it's going to be a tough battle for the podcast header image between that and in Birdie Wing, Ichina getting blasted by gay rainbow waves.
Right, by the rainbow.
So we'll see. But
I'm glad I think this first episode is not as bad about it as the second of, oh boy, we got so many characters. We got to like wrap up their character arc. So it's just
but it is becoming a problem at this point in the show.
Yes, it feels like a checklist. So, I do appreciate that we find time to do what I hope they would do, which is that the Earth, once Suletta has lost, Miorine and the Ariel, who is left there for her, but her classmates in the Earth House, right, who all kind of band together to cheer her up. We get the culmination of Martin's arc where he becomes the fucking masochist play toy of one Cecilia Dote.
This is one step away from like a please step on me, madam Dojinshi.
Yes,
I think it's less than one step.
The funniest
twist. I wanted to say one step, but one step like over there.
Yes. The funniest twist in all of Witch from Mercury is that Cecilia Dote was, in fact, the school's guidance counselor. And doles out some relatively decent advice to Martin to get him out of his weird, self-hating funk. While he is, of course, painting her toenails and holding her feet. This show, it can't help itself.
Yeah, it's very good.
It's weird, put it that way.
It is weird, but in some regards, the thing that I think is going to become increasingly true with at least these two episodes of Gundam Witch from Mercury is that it is the strength of those kooky emotional beats that will help paper over maybe, some of the increasing shakiness of the foundations of the story's overall plot.
Yeah,
I feel like that we have said for quite some time now that like the corporate politics and espionage kind of varies between dull and confusing a lot of the time.
By the end of
it's not the strongest point of the show.
By the end of the first of these two episodes, when Prospera starts doing her thing and all the Earth people start getting murdered. I had no idea what was going on at that point.
So I think this is unfortunately
I kind of get it, but like, sorry, go on, Jay.
But the point that we were saying is like, at least from my perspective, I understood enough that I don't really care so much compared to what's going on with the individual characters.
Emotionally. Right? Emotionally, in your gut, Prosper is doing these things to achieve her revenge. Like that is like the important feeling you get.
I know what her general idea is, right?
Yeah, but it's like the more you zoom out and the harder you look at it, you go, "Wait, why did she do that?" And I think if you break it down, like I would say it mostly passes muster. Like they have
complicated revenge schemes in my anime.
I mean, in my Gundam, especially.
It's like I know what Prospera is doing is bad, but why is she doing it? I could not explain to you.
I think it's also undermined a little by the fact that Prospera is the most obvious villain in the world.
Right? I mean, she's not even hiding it. Right?
She is the most suspicious woman of all time. And Miorine's like, yeah, definitely, we'll give you the Gundam.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things of like you sort of have to like remember like people have literally already started to make G-Reco-esque charts for Witch from Mercury to break down these relationships, but which is not necessarily a good thing. You don't necessarily want to be compared to G-Reco, but here we are.
In that regard, at least. Yeah.
But the thing I guess to remember about Prospera, right, is that she never like held any allegiance to anyone but herself, right? She's not aligned with Earth. She is not aligned with the Spacians. She has always been aligned to her own agenda, right?
Right.
And
I
so
mean, she's a very classic anime villain in that.
And
way,
so
right?
when her actions directly lead to like the mass massacring of Earthians in the city that Miorine has landed in, she's making the mother of all omelets, and she's not going to fret over every egg. Like,
I mean, yes, that's the thing. Like, clearly, she sees all of these people and things as like items on a chessboard.
Yes,
that could be, and it doesn't matter because eventually human instrumentality is
right. Exactly, and I do want to call attention to it's one of those moments that there's a version of this show that's 39 episodes, and this stuff gets the time it deserves, but I do appreciate that they spend time to address like Miorine's like frankly sort of naive conception of like what she is doing here on Earth, right? When the Earthian representatives are like, "Oh, you're going to give us job. Oh, you're a job creator. Oh, wow, that's great. Oh, unemployment's going to go down. Hey, what about all the people who have been unlawfully detained and murdered in cold blood by your security forces?"
Yeah.
Right? Like when she's like opening up her argument like, "Oh, and unemployment will go down 30%." It's like the most like neoliberal like, well, the cops are still going to shoot black people in the street, but don't worry, like there'll be so many new jobs, you know.
Yeah, like, I think I like that about that bit and Miorine in general is like I like that she's smart, but she doesn't have like total control over everything. She doesn't know everything, you know. She's not like a know-it-all. Everything's going according to my plan type of thing. Like,
right.
She lacks practical experience, right?
And it does almost kind of feel like if you threw an actual 16-year-old into that situation,
right.
That's
like it's
what you were going to get.
Naive in the way that children are.
Right.
Miorine goes into that meeting treating it like a school assignment, like she's reading off her paper, and then this will reduce unemployment, but right, and like these, like, and specifically, like the Earthian representatives are older, they are people of color, or they are a diverse group of people, and they're nonplussed, right? They're like, that's cute and all, but like you haven't done anything to actually address our concerns, and you know, I think like again, this could have been. In G's sicko world of Witch from Mercury, this could have been a whole episode. Like, people would complain, people would hate me for it. I would make an entire episode about Miorine just getting dressed down by older people of color who have actually seen, like...
There have been very good Gundam episodes that were just people in rooms talking to each other.
Yeah, like... And I think... Again, it's like that thing that Witch from Mercury keeps falling into of like, wow, that was a really well done 2 minutes of that plot line.
Right, but it probably could have used a little more time to cook. Yeah, but that was...
I think, though, as Jill said, I think that some of its impact is dulled by the fact that it's not entirely clear why the conflict is happening or like what the, like, you get a sort of big picture view, but it's I think some more like clearly articulated stakes would help the satire hit even harder, you know.
Right. No, I agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we should probably just get into the latest episode here, which is the most Gundam Witch from Mercury has Gundammed since the last episode of the first season.
What were you going to say? Something
well, I was just going to say, like, they're kind of a piece. Like, these two episodes are fairly well paired because, like, one is basically pure setup and one is pure payoff.
I mean, and that second episode also just kind of shows that the show is more interested in characters than in the quote-unquote plot that is happening.
Yeah. I think that's a fair
because that's basically a culmination of what you just said of like the show will seems like it does seem to be the case that there is a full 50 episode plot written out for this show somewhere, but they just decide to show bits and pieces of it, like they're showing you the most interesting bits or pieces.
Right.
Yeah, and
I think that's what we've always said about the show being economic, right? Like, it knows where to put the screen time. It's just a little more would be nice, I guess.
Yeah. And like,
it's just the reality of making a high budget anime in this day and age, I'm afraid.
And this second, like I would say the most important thing which happens in this second episode is mostly just that they effectively wrap up the corporate infighting / Shadiq planning to be like
right,
the president.
like this.
Yeah,
this
there's kind of nothing left by the end of this episode, right? Like everything is burned to the ground.
It's funny because we were all like, oh, yep, the school's gonna get it in the first episode of the second half, and then the Earthian terrorists show up in like the fourth episode, like, yep, that's it for the school, and now here we are finally at episode 20 or whatever, and we're like, all right, yeah, that's definitely it for the school.
In the next episode, they're just going to be back in class.
I swear to God, if they're still in class in the next episode,
this episode is just like various parties within the school try their hardest to get school cancelled forever.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the dream of every teenager.
But yeah, this episode is basically the thing that they do where they're like, the comic relief characters have to go now because now we're getting serious. Except in this case, the comic relief characters are like the characters who are hangers-on from old plot lines, and we're sort of just wiping them off the board.
I joked about it to begin this segment, but like Shadiq basically does the "I'm going to tell you my motivation" speech, and his motivation is to prevent there must never be space fascism again, and therefore you must give all the power to me and make me a space fascist. So
I mean, the slightly more
is a completely fine motivation, but it is both A little on the nose, and B also it is the basic Gundam plot since the very first show.
Like every authoritarian in the history of a Gundam has convinced themselves that they will end authoritarianism by becoming the final authoritarian.
It is literally the Charles.
I mean, I think that fight with Guel is pretty interesting because if you look at it like from a strictly ideological point of view, Shadiq is the more sympathetic one because he's fighting for the liberation of an oppressed people, whereas Guel is just like, I want to bring my father's company back to glory. But then if you look at their character arcs, you are sort of like implicitly meant to understand that Shadiq has completely lost it and is just fighting for personal revenge rather than for the liberation of the Earthians. Whereas Guel is trying to become a better man than his father and sort of understands that his company was complicit in horrible war crimes, but this will try to do better.
Yeah. But also, Guel is very much fighting for the status quo. He is
right. And this is one of those cases where I think that the Guel Shadiq stuff only works. And this is why I have argued that like the thing that Witch from Mercury needs the most is just more episodes, because I am willing to forgive the Guel fighting for the status quo stuff because we had an entire episode dedicated to tearing him down, emotionally and ideologically, right? Like with his episode on Earth, right? So even though he doesn't say to the screen, "I'm going to build a better, more fair Benerit corporation," you understand his heart is broadly in the right place because of what he's experienced.
And at the same time, like, I think that there is a fascinating version of this story where, like, Shadiq is a more sympathetic, more rounded character who you perhaps do not necessarily agree with, but is, like the Shah of Shah's counterattack, who is a monster, but he is a monster who we have spent enough time with, who we have seen enough facets of to understand that there is like a deep compulsion and mania which drives him rather than just like simply But the thing is, Shadiq has had relatively little screen time, and like I said, like the surface motivation is just the absolute like 101 thing for Gundam protagonists.
That's just the thing that it comes down to, that this battle doesn't really work as an ideological clash, but it does work as a clash of characters at the apex of their arc. Right?
Also a terrific visual spectacle.
I was going to say, if we can't, so if we're not going to get the screen time we need to fully flesh out all the political things and whatnot, hey, we got a cool robot fight.
Yeah,
Right.
and the character, like, I do want to point out that the character stuff is still broadly done fairly decently, right? Like, this is the thing we've established now, that like The Witch from Mercury is a much more character driven show than a plot driven one.
Right,
Yeah.
and it is the anchor that keeps us hooked, even when the plot goes kind of.
And
off
yeah,
the rails.
dude, fucking, I gotta say, really regret not pre-ordering the high-grade Darabald right now. Like, how was I supposed to know that would end up being the coolest fucking suit in this
Which
show,
one's
man?
the Darabald?
The red one.
Oh,
Guel's. And it's like, because, when that thing gets introduced in episode 3, it's like, oh, this thing's such a jobber, like the most jobber-ass, like, mech you've ever seen. And, the redemption arc on Darabald, man.
I do like, I really like Shadiq's weird Frieza aspect.
Yes.
Because it has, like, it looks like it's grown out of crystals, which is always a cool thing for me. And also it has the Turnex's weird claw cannon
feet claw lasers. Yeah.
Anyway.
Again, yeah,
I had a perfect segue, but you guys had to ruin it by being horny for robots.
Sorry.
Oh, come on. It's a good robot fight. Like, the way...
the fights are good.
Like, I gotta give I am the guy, so I will use our limited remaining time to say, I love when a robot fight understands that robots are people and simultaneously not people. That you can win a fight despite having your mech literally bisected because you still played the last winning move, right? Like, that's exactly what Guel does there at the end, right?
Also, when the last winning move is to cut your opponent's arms and legs.
It's fucking sick.
We should probably briefly mention the stuff that happens on the school as well. Aqua, you're going to make a point, right?
So, Shadiq's plan is basically to unleash a school shooter?
Yeah.
As a sort of false flag distraction operation. So he sets Noria free from the loser's lounge. And she immediately just starts blowing up the school. And then Elan all of a sudden.
And that day, Elan's heart grew 5 times its size.
Yeah, it just becomes this weird manic pixie dream boy for her, who's like, I will show you that life is worth living, and you don't need to fight and kill him. It's like, what has this dude done to earn this? Because like 2 episodes ago, he was still like a smarmy, slimy piece of shit.
I guess, I don't know.
Who was just
He kept looking at her sketchbook.
I guess that's... Again, this is one of those things I don't know if we could spend an entire episode in that room, but we probably needed, another, 10 minutes of them talking.
The moral I got from this story is that if you are locked in a room with a woman for 72 hours, you will absolutely fall in love with her. So,
yeah.
Also, right. I will say this. It is Gundam is no stranger to men just spontaneously falling in love with mentally ill women out of nowhere.
In fact, it's kind of an important plot point in a lot of
There is a very dark version of this story, because Elan number 5 is the Elan they specifically selected for his ability to woo women.
Right, to seduce
Like,
Selena,
after they blow up number 4, they explicitly picked number 5 to have him seduce Selena. So that would be interesting if he uses those quote-unquote skills to, talk Noria down from her rampage, but that's not what's happening here.
Yeah.
Also, it kind of doesn't matter because in the most predictable possible twist, the moment she stops, she's instantly sniped. So,
every character I thought was going to die at the start of this episode died.
R.I.P. Petra.
I thought
shout-outs to Petra. Okay, speaking of Petra, So it kind of confirms that she had a thing with Lauda, Guel's younger brother, right? And this episode is also
one-sided, right?
Yes. Yeah. And this is also the episode where Lauda finally hears the news that yes, Guel is the one who technically pulled the trigger on their dad. Is Lauda gonna go sicko mode at this point? I feel like they've sort of been building up that he is low-key unhinged, and a Mercurian wench and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think he's gonna. He's definitely gonna do something. I don't know what it is yet. But, yeah,
I guess that sort of depends on how much he actually cared for Petra and how much it wasn't I inherited my brother's groupies.
I think the Petra thing is neither here or there. It's their dad thing.
Yeah.
But look, we all if we got to talk about the Astakasia school shooting, then we have to talk about I swear to God, it doesn't even make sense. It's not even in character. They are just like using Cecilia to like do cool stuff at least once per episode.
Right, she's just
And
like
so-
the Deus Ex Machina character.
Yeah, like she is the Fonz of the Witch from Mercury. She is just this weird bit character that just got super popular.
Hey.
And so now the writers are like, hey, put Cecilia in this episode and make her do her trademark thing of stepping on men. That'll work.
Next
And-
episode, Cecilia goes water skiing.
Yeah, like quite literally, because all the fucking Earth House kids are in the shelter. Like, God, Choo Choo's like, damn, if only I had a robot, I could get some shit done if I just had a robot.
Also, I like how the Debbie Trader was destroyed off screen just so
Yeah,
they
just
could have
blown
this
up.
scene. Yeah.
And Cecilia's like, well, good news, I have a better Demi Trainer in my locker. It's just like. It's like,
mean,
wow,
Listen,
wow, thanks, Cecilia Dote,
listen,
the
G,
hit
I-
character from the
I-
Witch
She and
from
Haru-
I
Mercury.
don't know if you've heard, but this new hammer came out this week, and
mean,
it's
she and-
way stronger than the old one.
That scene also sort of reminded you that there is a fourth major faction in the Benerit group that
There's-
has barely done
Yeah,
anything up until
Yeah,
this
like
point.
at the beginning of the show, I was like, I bet like mysterious quiet kid is really like a psycho or a mastermind. And no, there's no time left. He's just a quiet kid who has a harrow. Like,
He's got a horror with cool light up eyes, to be fair.
yeah.
But yeah, so that's how we
it
get
also
Choo Choo
compels
back.
you to tell the truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that is how we get Choo Choo back in the mix. And I wish he had gotten more screen time, but we are given the gift of the delightful screen of. I think fans literally called this as far back as the episode
Yes.
in which she was
Yes.
literally introduced. That Choo Choo is one day going to be in a mech and be like, fuck this sniping shit. That's
Yes.
for chumps and cowards. And just turn her oversized sniper rifle into an improvised club.
Yes.
Uh,
Oh.
And I think this is
Uh,
what
See,
we
they had
mean.
to give her a robot because otherwise she would have just beaten everyone up with her bare hands.
Yes, and I think this is what I think. Choo Choo and Cecilia's weird thing this episode is no better encapsulation of. Yeah, the longer you stare at the actual like meta plot of Witch from Mercury, the shakier it becomes. But these emotional character beats are so chaotic and good that I can kind of continue to overlook them.
I mean,
Yeah.
look, I'm going to sum up here. Writing questionable, vibes spot on.
Impeccable.
The vibes are impeccable, without a doubt.
Yes.
All right. Well, I guess we're going to see how they're going to try to wrap
Yeah.
this up in the last couple,
Looks like Soletta
4 or
has
5
put the
episodes, but
first important step towards redemption.
yeah. And I think
We still don't
they're
know
gonna-
what robot she's gonna pilot. Like,
I still think she's going to take the new Gundam.
Perhaps some
Alright.
sort of cool.
That's my-
Wait, the new Gundam's in this show?
we can't
No,
do
that's-
this bit.
Yeah, we don't have time for that.
Is-
But
is there-
Not the
is there-
new
What is it called?
Gundam from the hit show Birdie
the-
Wing.
the Schwarzette
there
or
still-
whatever it is.
Yes.
Is there still a
so-
Gundam aside from Ariel that is still functional?
there's the one
The
that
Schwarzette. It's the ring-headed one, but
yeah.
but everybody now thinks that Gwill's going to take that now that Darabald is a scrap heap. So it's like,
Right.
We don't
I,
really
think,
know what's
I
going
think
on.
that
guess
she
the
will get.
Pharax is still out there.
I think
Oh,
that she will
yeah.
get Ariel back, and Prosper will get a sick new Gundam for like.
A red one, perhaps.
that's probably the most likely, right? Somehow
Right.
she gets Ariel
Mhm.
back, but yeah, I hope they pull it off. Is all I'm gonna say, and I don't see. Well, that's the thing. We're still at the point where I'm not. There's still danger of this crashing and burning in the last couple episodes, but I
when it
don't
comes to
think that will
Gundam,
happen.
you are not allowed to breathe until the plane lands.
Till the final episode hits
It's been one hell of a flight already, though.
Yeah,
It's
so
it's been fun.
I don't think they'll totally blow it, but I hope they find some way because there's just so much going on and we're rapidly running out of time. But nevertheless, I'm enjoying it a
you
lot.
see,
so-
we'll have to watch it, and then we'll have to watch End of Witch from Mercury in 2 years. And then we'll have to watch Witch from Mercury 3.0 plus 1.0.
Yeah.
You cannot take one. You cannot gain one, or whatever.
Going to
in like
whatever.
20 years. Yeah.
Yeah, Prospera's counterattack. Anyway, yeah. So I think that'll do it then for this one. We're gonna wrap things up. So, yeah, we'll see everybody in another month or so for the final wrap up of the season. But
Yeah.
let's do our housekeeping. You can check us out at theglorioblog.com. You can go read Aqua's post about his feelings on Birdie Wing, which do not necessarily reflect the rest of the Glorio blog, apparently. But definitely go check that out.
It's still a good read. It's still a good read.
I think, it's the points I think are valid. I think we're just maybe difference of opinion on that. But yes, it's a good read. Go check that out. Then follow us on Twitter at the Glorio blog, on co-host at Glorio. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, and of course YouTube. You can like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, tell us we're wrong, point out all the, factual errors we made, whatever. Tell your friends, tell your enemies. We'll catch everybody next time.
I don't like you, Boston.